Okay, we are ready. We are officially recording. Well, hello, everybody. Hi, this is Beverly Todd. I'm so glad to see you here on Zoom. Thank goodness for Zoom. We can all keep connecting, even in this time of COVID. And I love seeing some of you are in your studios. What fun. I am in my studio in Santa Fe, New Mexico. This is Studio Gray Fox. There's a second studio here next door called Studio Raven, where we host workshops, and it's open for residency. So thank you for joining me today. Let's jump into talking about art. So as a reminder, leave your mics on mute. At the very end, we'll have time for questions, and then you can unmute your mic and raise your hand, and we'll go ahead and chat. So knowing yourself, your art, and why you create is so important because people are waiting to hear what you have to say. They absolutely love hearing from artists because they think of us as this kind of exotic breed of people. We're a little curious, a little weird, a little odd, and that's okay. So don't be afraid to ever speak up because people really want to know who we are and what we do and how we do it and what our art means. And telling your story and connecting has never been more important, especially in the time now where we aren't doing personal connections. So being able to hop online and do a video or write about your art is also really important. And people will buy art, do business, connect and relate to people they know and trust. You know, we're all that same way. We want to connect and hang out with people we like. So that's another really important reason to be able to tell your art story. So today we're going to do that. We're going to talk about how do you talk and write? How do you get a honest personal story and dialogue going? We'll do some tips and techniques about presentation, some do's and don'ts. So I'm going to share my screen here so you can kind of see what I've got here on PowerPoint. Okay. So a little bit about myself. Can you see the full screen of PowerPoint and there's nothing blocking the middle? Okay. Awesome. Awesome, thank you. I see heads shaking, good. So a little bit about how I got started doing public speaking and talking and writing. I grew up on a family farm, and of course, if you're a farm kid in Nebraska, you're in 4-H, and I showed cattle, and this is one of my first 4-H calves here. But I also got involved in the 4-H public speaking program and started winning purple ribbons. And it really made me realize that there is power in telling stories. And who didn't love hearing a story about a little farm girl raising a big 1,000-pound calf and showing it? So that's what got me started. And all through high school and college, I did radio shows and writing and editing and have a degree in journalism and communications. And then got into the corporate world of marketing communications and used my skills there. So I've been on the stage with Henry Winkler. And I tell you what, Henry has the greenest eyes and gives best hugs. And then also I do a lot of talking about my own art. So I'm going to share with you what I've learned of being in corporate PR, being a national media spokesperson, writing, editing, and all those things that I've learned all along the way. So here, raise a hand here. Who loves talking about themselves? Hey, I love that. I see Linda's hand. I can't see everyone right now, but I'm sure there's a few more hands up. I know it is awkward, especially if people are peppering you with questions or you're standing in front of a big audience. So we're going to talk about that today. How do you make it fun and something you're going to really look forward to and have a good, juicy story? So the best way to have an open, honest dialogue is to understand yourself. So the number one do we're talking about today is truly know who you are and what you do. This takes a lot of reflecting inward and asking yourself, and then what, and why, and how. Almost like you're going to be a psychologist asking yourself questions that help you dig deeper. For instance, why do you make art? It's fun. I like it. Okay, so your next question, digging deeper, why is it fun? I feel freedom and empowerment when I'm standing at an easel with art, or I love making marks because it reminds me of bird tracks I saw in the snow, or I love the sound of charcoal on fresh paper. So those are the kind of questions that you can ask yourself and keep digging deeper. And why do I like doing art? And why do I like the color blue? And why do I feel empowered? And as you layer down through those questions, you're going to get to some really aha moments and some honesty, a little therapy there. So here's a list of questions to ask yourself. And don't worry about writing these all down. At the end, I'm going to shoot out an email to everyone with a PDF that has all these questions, because there's a lot of bullet points in these next slides, and I want you to be able to listen versus trying to write. So these are some of the deep dive questions that can help get to the heart and soul of who you are and why you create art. And I'm gonna turn my camera over this way here. See that yellow sticky on the wall? I love working with these yellow stickies. So this is how I work myself. I will put up stickies all around the walls here in the studio or in the house, depending where I'm at. Write the questions, grab these great marquee Sharpies in all sorts of colors because it's fun. And I will spend hours standing up in front of these, pondering, moving. And it's a little bit like creating art. You're going inward and thinking. So I'm going to suggest that you get some stickies, or you can do it on note paper if you have it, or if you want to do it on a computer. But there's something about standing up, writing, looking at the words, thinking about the questions, and then scribbling on there. Bullet points, words, phrases. This isn't anything fancy right now. It's just brainstorming and capturing and downloading everything that's in your head and your heart. So this is a great way to start about deep diving. So let's look at the list a little bit. Here are some of the questions that you can ask yourself. Why do I make art? What does my art represent? Is it realistic? Is it abstract? Is it about birds? Is it about the environment? Is it about women's empowerment? What does your art really represent? What inspires you, and how do you channel and use that? For instance, for me here in New Mexico, nature, the sky, the blueness, the colors are so inspiring. And so I've seen that happening in a lot of my art, and being able to talk about that, how colors grab you. What does creativity mean? Why do we show up and create every day? Why is it important? Well, if you're an artist, you know it's part of your heart and soul and you can't not create, but non-artist people don't understand that. You'll hear people say things, I can't even do a stick drawing. So for them, being able to explain what it is and how it feels. I love explaining to people when you're in the flow. What does it feel like when you're in the flow creating art? And I found a lot of guys can relate to this because they love sports and they can be in the sports flow too. So being able to explain how you're in that zone and time goes by and before you know it, it's dark out and you didn't even turn on the lights because you were painting. People will understand that because they all have their flow, their niche, their passion too. Mechanical stuff. How do I make my art? Is it on paper? Is it on canvas? Do I go outside? Am I a plein air artist? Am I a collage artist? I mean, even explaining the smallest things about the kind of scissors you might use or the paintbrushes you might use, people find that fascinating. So dive down and say, here's what I do. Here's how I make my art. And this one's really important. People want to know what that art means to them. If they're standing in front of your canvas, they want to relate to it, but they don't always know how. So having you explain to them, when you see my art, I would love you to feel happiness. Or this is a painting about memory and childhood and growing up in a city where we could run free. Tell them the backstory, and they are going to find a hook, a connection, a piece where they are so excited they can't wait to buy your art. How do you get in the creative flow? That's another good question. Do you listen to music? Do you practice yoga? Do you eat a coconut every morning? I don't know. We have some of these fun things, and people love hearing the quirky things we do as artists because they're like, wow, that's fun. What's something that would surprise people if they knew that about you? I was talking to an artist just yesterday from New Orleans, Marsha Holmes, who's teaching here this summer. Marsha makes the most fluid abstracts based on water lilies, a little bit like Monet. I asked her this question. She was a CPA and headed a corporate CPA department and did mergers and acquisitions. So, you would never guess a CPA person would create such fluid art. So what are those little surprising things that people are like, wow? What work are you really proud of and why? Was it because it happened in flux and flow, or is it because it had a big statement? Is it because, I don't know, tell people the backstory. And then finally, what do you wish people knew or understood about you or your art? I sometimes feel misunderstood or not totally. I mean, I think all of my friends think I'm the weird one in the group, which is fine. But sharing with them why I have this weirdness about me, they love that. They're going to eat that up. So these are the questions you can work on with your piece of paper, diving deep. And we spent a lot of time in this section because this is really the juicy nugget stuff right here. Once you answer these and know the answers, then you'll be able to go on to the next step on packaging how you talk. And of course, this stuff, all these questions here, they're always in flow. You may leave your paper up and come back to it every week or two, or every month or two, or even in a year. Life is going to change, and your answers and the way you approach your art will change too. So this isn't static. Always think about it all the time. And of course, there's always some fun story coming up at some point. So here's an example of how you take your answers from what you know about yourself and package it. And there's four simple things as you package it. Who I am, what I do, why I do it, and how I connect and relate to the viewer. So it's really easy. 4 steps, 4 easy things to remember. And I put a sample here of something I wrote up about myself. So see if this answers those 4 things. Hello, I'm Beverly Todd, an abstract expressionist artist. I don't take myself or my art too serious, but play, however, is serious business. I grew up on the family farm on the prairie of Nebraska near Union, Nebraska, running wild across the prairie, and that inspires my art today because I still use things from nature like sticks, tools from the shop like trowels to splash paint, push paint, move it around on the canvas. And for me, this is playing big. And it means listening less to convention and more to the voices that whisper, go explore, come down this path, come play with me. So did you hear the 4 things? Who I am, what I do, why I do it, and how it relates to them. I want to encourage the viewer to be playful and whimsical and have fun and step outside the box. So those are your 4 steps, the 4 bullet points, and they don't have to be in that exact order. You might lead with, how you connect with the person first. Like, I would love you to come play with me, and here's why. So you can mix them up in any order, and your sentences will have a little bit of everything in them. So, and everything we talk about today, these are not hard and fast rules, because as you know, as an artist, you learn the rules so you can break the rules. And we do that really well. So here's your do number 2. When you're talking or writing at any time, be bold. Don't be afraid to show up in what you say or how you look or as loud as you want to talk. Be bright, be happy. Maybe your art is about angst, but I'm going to be honest with you. No one wants to hang out with a sad, unhappy, grumpy person. So be bright and smile a lot and be brief. I find myself doing this. When I talk about something I'm passionate about, I can ramble on. And then eventually you realize their eyes have glazed over and you lost them around the second sentence. So be brief and concise with what you do. So when you're posting and doing this, social media post on there all the time. Post at least once or twice a day on your stories and Facebook stories or Instagram. At least every other day or weekly, do something big within the body, the regular post section. But keep it short, focus on the visual. Don't be obvious. For instance, there's a painting behind me, purple. if I would post that and say, this is a painting with purple and green, it's 48 by 48 inches. Well, that's obvious. Tell them something more. This painting was done after I hiked up the mountains in the fall and saw the beautiful fall colors. So add value, add context to whatever you post visually. If you're doing an elevator speech, make it short too, 1 to 3 minutes, and practice doing that elevator speech over and over. So anytime you meet somebody, any place, you can deliver that. If you're talking at an art show, an art opening, presenting your art, also keep that brief, 5 to 10 minutes. People are excited to hear from you, but they want to get over to the wine and then go look at your art some more. So be brief and stay on script. A little bit, we're going to talk about that script. And stay on your talking points, stay with what you want them to know. So our do number 2 is tell stories. Do you know how much we love to hear stories about people in their life, funny things, odd things, lessons learned? So pick out 2 or 3 stories that can be your nugget stories that you sprinkle in when you talk about yourself and your art. And you've probably all heard about the storyline, the story format called the hero's journey, where our hero goes on an adventure, they're struggling, they need to discover something. They meet challenges along the way, they learn lessons, and at the end, there's victory and new knowledge. And I think of the book, The Alchemist. I think probably everyone knows that book, where Santiago is a young Spanish boy, and he goes on a journey to Egypt and the Middle East to quest for his dreamer's adventure. Along the way, he's in a sandstorm, he's robbed, he meets a girl, she kisses him. And at the end of the book, he discovers that his treasure was inside him all the time. So there's an example of a true hero's journey story. And if you want to study the best who do these kind of things, go watch some TED Talks. There's thousands and thousands of TED Talks, and they're all like 10 to 20 minutes long. Nothing's longer than 20 minutes. So you can see how somebody succinctly packages their hero story, lessons they learn, and then they share that back with the audience. So here's my hero story. This is at Georgia, really close to Georgia O'Keeffe's house of a Ghost Ranch. And 2 years ago, when I was contemplating coming to New Mexico and moving from Omaha, Nebraska, leaving my day job, putting everything in a truck and coming here, I was looking at property, Labor Day weekend, the last day I spent one night at Ghost Ranch. And I went to bed that night saying, Georgia, I have no idea if this is the right thing to do. It's a big step, it's huge, it's scary. Give me a sign. I fell asleep that night, and then about 7 a.m. the next morning, a storm blew in, and I had left the window open, and they had wood shutters that opened inside. So I'm awoken by lightning and thunder, and those wood shutters fly in and out, slam back and forth about 10 times, and I was like, Georgia, I guess that's a hell yes, because Georgia was a fiery spirit, and she didn't tiptoe around things, so Georgia was telling me, go do it, girl. So pepper your talks with stories like that. People love to know why and how you're inspired. Also, anticipate questions. People are going to ask you questions, off the wall, weird stuff, and you probably have gotten all of these plus other weird things. So here's a couple of lists. The one on the left side is questions you may get from outside the art world. How long did it take you to paint this? What does it mean? This one's not really a question, but my kid could do that. How do you know when your painting's finished? What's it cost? People always want to know how long it took, what's it cost, and then their kid could do it. So how did you get started doing what you're doing? Do you have a favorite piece? Do you make a living at this? Do you listen to music to create? What is it? So think about how you can answer all these in a fun, positive way without being grumpy, thinking, oh my gosh, you're a fool. And then on the other side here, on the right side, here's some questions you might get from inside the art world. These are a little bit deeper. Things like, what are your inspirations? What's your background? What does your work aim to say? Do you have a statement? What's your influence? Other artists, other genres? What are your plans and goals for the future? Where do you see your art going? So those are the kind of things I want you to anticipate. And you may want to jot these down and then just think 1 or 2 sentence answers to each. So you always are ready and then you don't have to stop and go and ah, like I'm doing right now, so an example would be to have your answers ready. And when people ask these, you can do a technique called pivoting or bridging. So when somebody asks you an odd question that really doesn't relate to your art, your purpose, your goals, your talking points, you can pivot. Briefly answer or reply or acknowledge what they asked, and then pivot to what you would love them to know about your art. So you notice politicians do this all the time. In fact, they don't even try to answer the question the interviewer asked them. They just go on to their talking points. But you can do it in a more gentle way. It's a way that you can just get a little more airtime, face time, whether it's a media interview, talking in front of a crowd, or talking one-on-one, where you can share what you really know. So an example of this, my sister-in-law is a non-artist. She was a grade school teacher, but she looked at a piece of my art once and she said, I see a horse, I see a train. What does that mean? And my response would be something like, I love it when people find a personal connection in the art. This piece, I'm going to show you the piece right behind me. This piece was inspired by a hike up Suki Mountain in the fall. And I looked around and the aspen trees were glowing gold and the pine trees were this rich, rich green. And then there was this little stream and the blue water was moving. And when the wind hit them all, it was like a swirl. And so that's what inspired me to come home and create this painting. So that is what I do, Kelly. It's called Abstract Expressionist. And it's about painting big and large and blocks of color and full of emotion. So in that example, I acknowledged and thanked her for looking at the art and having a personal connection. And then I got to tell her about what that art meant to me, and then explained even a little bit about what abstract art is. So that's how you can kind of answer a question, pivot, and bridge to what you want people to know. So there you go. Anticipate questions. Practice, practice, practice. Number 6. I usually start out, if I'm doing a formal presentation, I usually start out with a full script because I really want to have all my thoughts coherent. Then I sometimes then abbreviate down into an outline of just bullet points. And the one thing I usually do is I make sure I have my opening 1 or 2 sentences and my closing 1 or 2 sentences memorized. Because once you start and you got that opening, that's the hardest part. And once you're talking about what you know, you're off at a gallop. And you want to have your closing memorized because you don't want to just and ah at the end or say, thank you very much. You want to have a succinct closing that captures what you want them to know. And you don't have to say thank you at the end of any speech or any program. They should be thanking you. Maybe come up with a tagline like go create, or mine is live beautifully, create passionately, play fully. So, leave them, that last line you leave them with is going to be memorable, and that first line you start with will be memorable too. So in the middle then, so you've got your beginning and your ending memorized. In the middle, we're going to go back to those 4 points: who I am, what I do, why I paint, my inspiration. And those are 4 simple things then. You can always remember those if you bullet point those. Practice, practice, practice in the mirror. If you got a great dog that loves for you to talk to him or her, practice with the dog. Set up your phone, videotape it, come back and review it. Watch for crutch words. And you'll notice I'm using some of these right now. Ums, so's, you knows, wells, rights. These are things we fill in the blank spaces when we can't quite think of what to say next. Maybe our mouth is running faster than our brain, so we throw these in all the time. And researchers say we usually use about 5 of these a minute. And if you want to be a really good public speaker, break them down to about 1 per minute. And instead of using these, if you're kind of searching for what to say next, just pause and look at the audience. It's going to make you look really smart, because during that pause, they know something really big is coming next. So practice, 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 and practice pausing instead of ums and ahs and you knows. Practice with a mic. And if you're going to be speaking in front of an audience at a stage, go early the day before, walk through it so you're comfortable, walk up to the podium, do a sound check with the mic. Make sure you're really comfortable in the setting. That way you'll have more confidence once you're on the stage. And if you've ever stood in front of a stage with bright lights, you're going to know that you will not be able to see the audience at all because all of the floodlights are looking right at you. So you're going to have to look out there and pretend you can see their faces because it is just so bright. So that's a good reason why it's nice to get up on the podium, the stage, and practice first. And if you forget all of those points above this, remember this. When you speak from your heart, you're in your zone, you're in your flow, you're in your place. You know yourself, you know your topic, you know what you do, and it will always be right and it will always be interesting. So being honest and sincere and talking from the heart. So number 7, build confidence. So Amy Cuddy is an author and she wrote a book a few years ago and she talked about this, the power pose, which is just like this superwoman right here. The power pose helps you build confidence right before you're going to do something hard or important. And basically it is standing with your feet hip width apart, hands on your hips, chest back, face up like Superwoman, Superman. And that is your power pose. Hold that for a minute or so. It's going to feel like an eternity, but it really does give you strength from your core. Breathe in, breathe out, and go do it. So that is a physical affirmation about you're an awesome, powerful, amazing person. You can also write and post affirmations. And I'm a big fan of this. Do you remember the movie The Help? And there was the black maid who spoke to the little white girl. You is strong, you is beautiful, you is kind. Every day when she left the house, she told the little girl, you is strong, you is beautiful, you is kind. And the power of that affirmation right there gives me goosebumps. So I've taken that myself. And this is something that I similarly use. I'll often write this on a piece of paper, tape it on my mirror, because every morning this is really nice to hear. I am strong, I am bold, I am beautiful, I'm an awesome speaker. People are waiting to hear what I have to say. Or I'm an awesome artist, or I'm the best gardener. Telling yourself that just lights you up. Oh, here's another thing I'd love you to try when we get off this. Go stand in the mirror and say, you are beautiful. And see how that feels inside. It's amazing. You know, during COVID, I don't have anyone telling me I'm beautiful right now. The dog doesn't say much, but even telling yourself that and believing it yourself is just a powerful elixir. And then the third thing you can do to build confidence is visualize this. Visualize yourself on that stage talking beautifully, confidently, or in front of the classroom or on the video, wherever you're talking. Visualize that. And then visualize the people on the other end listening, glowing, applauding, just being so excited because you've shared something amazing with them. So build your confidence. Number 7, when you write or talk, don't state the obvious. Go deeper. Tell the backstory. Use humor, be vulnerable. People want to know more, so much more than the obvious. A good example of this, I think everyone has seen this Wayeth painting called Christina's World. And do you know the backstory behind this? Some people, it's kind of idyllic pastoral scene with this young girl looking fondly at the house. Well, this was painted near Thompsonville, Maine in 1948. And this was a girl named Christina. She was a neighbor, and she actually had a disease that made her muscles deteriorate. So she would drag herself across the farms just like this. So Christina's World is capturing how Christina saw the world and how she moved through it, dragging herself across the farm. So, I mean, now that you know the backstory, this picture, this painting has so much more meaning and context. So again, go beyond the obvious and share what people won't know just by looking at your art. Okay, we have a couple don'ts. Don't ignore the dictionary. And I know a few of you are teachers here. So spelling, grammar, pronunciation is critical. And to be honest with you, I'm one of those people that I never got spelling in grade school. And I have a hard time. So thanks to Siri, now I'll grab my phone and say, Siri, how do I spell confidentiality? Siri's a big help for that when I'm looking up things. But make sure that your copy, what you write and how you talk is clean. Have a second set of eyes. Look at your material, especially if it's something you're publishing in a book. It's your CV, your resume, your artist statement. Make sure that everything's clean as possible. I have a sister that I send all my stuff to, and I'll say, Jane, look at this. And she won the spelling bee in 8th grade, so I know Jane's going to catch everything. If you're doing a talk, practice it with friends and ask them for feedback, not only on content, but clarity. Did they understand you? Was it interesting? Did they feel warm? Was it funny? So have family and friends give you feedback. And also keep your sentences short and brief, short paragraphs. Some people tend to write in one paragraph that's a full page long. Break them up, 1 or 2 sentences each, maybe even 1 sentence at a time. People have gotten so used to the way we post and see things online that we don't have the muscle memory to be able to read a novel anymore. So writing short and brief will keep their interest going. Same way with talking, short and brief and on point. And our last one is a don't, number 10. Don't miss a single opportunity. Keep posting online, show and tell your art, show processes as you're doing things, do a studio visit, write a blog for yourself or offer to write things for others, volunteer to speak at programs. I know of one artist who got a commission because she spoke at her kid's grade school, and one of the classmates' parents wanted a piece of art, commissioned her because she knew through the kids' grade school that she was an artist. Share your story with strangers. Okay, true story. Last Saturday, I was at the dog park, and there were 3 of us with dogs running around, and I got to speaking to the other couple, and I told them I was an artist, I had art workshops. She said, my friend and I take art workshops every year. So we traded business cards. Another great example, I had my appendix removed between Christmas and New Year's. The surgeon, wonderful guy, he collects art. So we traded, I gave him my business card. So you never know when somebody you meet in the grocery line, the hospital, the dog park might be somebody who wants your art, wants to come to the workshop, wants to network, wants to collaborate. So always be ready with that short 1-minute elevator speech where you can say, hey, I'm Bev, I'm an artist, I do abstract art, and I have a studio where I teach workshops. It's always amazing. Carry your business card everywhere and update your artist statement and bio. Update it maybe once a month, add things to it, keep it fresh. That way it is ready to go. You can cut and paste anytime you see an opportunity to enter an art contest, share something about yourself, be ready to rock and roll at a moment's notice. So I have homework for you. Here's something I'm going to ask each and every one of you to do is to share your elevator speech, your why story. It's going to be short. It might be 30 or 60 seconds, super duper short. And I want you to post it on your own social media pages, but I want you to come back and share it at my Beverly Todd Arts page, and I'll send you out a link to that in the follow-up email, and I'll have a posting there, and I'll do my own too. But I would love for you all to share. You can see each other, what you're working on, who you are, and it might expand your following also. So when you're shooting your why video, here's a couple of video tips. Shoot your camera horizontal, wide. That is the best format for reproducing video. And if you take it into any video editing software later, you're going to want the wide format versus the tall, skinny format. Stabilize your camera, set it on a ledge. If you have one of those little brackets that holds your camera, use that. Frame your shot, make sure you're in the center. Like right here, I'm in the center. I have a little bit of space above, a little bit below, and a lot on each side. And always leave a lot on each side because if you're shooting horizontal and it gets cropped, it will crop out the edges. So you don't want to be on this side and get your face down. Use natural lighting. If you have a window you can sit in front of, I am sitting in front of a wall of northern windows right now, so there's soft light coming in, and you can see the lighting is really generous and gentle on my face, and I do have wrinkles, so a nice soft window lighting. Or if you go outside in the shade, don't shoot in harsh light. Don't shoot with overhead light above you or below you because you're going to get those dark shadows. So be conscious of your light. And as artists, you know how important lighting is. Look at your backdrop. Do you have clutter? Is the cat on the ledge behind you? Is the trash can there? What's going on behind you in the video, and get rid of it. Let's see, avoid noise. So make sure the kids are out of the house. There's no train going by. I was doing an interview the other day and CenturyLink was installing stuff here and they kept knocking on the door and it was horrible. We had to stop the video, come back, go back and forth. So just make sure you have a nice, secure little time. Dress for your video. So solid colors are best versus wild, crazy stripes. Stripes always come up weird. But I'm going to also have this caveat. Because we're artists, I think dressing in solid colors doesn't apply to us because we're all about color and art and creativity and funkiness. So if your art personality is colorful, dress the part. I'm not saying wear a costume, but definitely as an artist, you can be much more interesting than the stockbroker who's being interviewed. Remember the timing. And when you think about timing and you're shooting a video, start with a pause. Stand in front of the camera, get composed, pause, start talking, smile, then talk, end, and then pause again. So I want you to pause at each end of your video because you can clip those pauses off. Often you'll notice people reaching up to turn their camera on and off like this, and it's a little distracting. So in almost every phone now, you can edit out and crop out the beginning and the end. So get rid of those things, those awkward things at the beginning and at the end of each video. And reshoot until you love your video. You know, we're not wasting film like the old days. You can delete, reshoot until you love it. And by the way, I'm going to tell you, all of you look marvelous. All of you talk marvelous. You are going to do an awesome job. So please do that. Today when we get off, or maybe tomorrow, I always wait till I have shower and makeup day before I shoot my video. So if you want to wait and do that when you have a good hair day, but please practice and start doing it right away while all of this is fresh in your head. So I wanted to talk lastly about your brand and your visual voice. As an artist, these are the things that are most important when you communicate out with the public. Your brand is who you are, what you do, how you show up in the world. Your visual voice is what you say through your art, your style, your marks, your genre. And if you look at these examples here, you've seen all these, you may not know the name behind each one of these artists, but these are artists with really strong visual voices. They have a style, they have a why, they have a presence, they show up, and we know who they are. So speaking about that, I want to share with you a couple opportunities I have coming up. This first one, I have 2 sets of workshops coming up. The first one is branding and marketing you. So we're going to talk about branding and how do you create your brand? How do you create a marketing strategy? What is your unique niche in the market? What do you do that no one else does? So in this workshop, the first one is online at the end of April, and then the other one is in person in the end of July here in Santa Fe. So the online workshop is 3 days. We meet 2 hours in the morning each day, and then you actually have a 30-minute personal one-on-one coaching with me in the afternoon of each day. So when you get out of either one of these workshops, you're going to end up with 2 to 4 pages of copy that you can cut and paste and use. You'll work with me and I will help you write and edit and tighten up things and make them really beautiful. We'll have talking points, a page of bulleted talking points that you can use. We're going to hone your 3-minute artist talk so you have that all polished. And we will update your artist statement and bio. So that happens in both workshops. If you come to Santa Fe in person in July, you'll do all that, plus a photographer will be here, and you will get professional headshots and studio painting shots that you can use that will show who you are and what you do. You will also hear from a panel. We'll have a panel of gallerists, art marketers, people here in Santa Fe in the art business. So you'll have an hour program. You can meet with them and talk to them about what's trending in art markets, what's selling, how to sell. And also, when you're here in person in Santa Fe, you will have a space in the studio where you bring your art, you create, and we'll work a little bit on your visual voice. So it'll be just dedicated time. It's not a workshop about art, but you will have an art station that you can play with. And that will help with all the marketing, branding, and the photography we're doing. It will just all blend together nicely. So those 2 classes are coming up. And then the second set of classes are Expressive You, Growing Your Visual Voice. So in these 2 workshops, again, the first one's online coming up at the end of May, and that meets Tuesdays for 2 hours every day for the 4 Tuesdays in May. And then you also have personal coaching sessions twice during that time period. And then when you come to Santa Fe in person, the same thing, plus you're going to get a little extra one-on-one time or studio time. So the visual voice, we're going to really work on what is unique about your art, why you paint, why you create. You'll get creative prompts, things that will help you dive deeper and really express your personal point of view in your art. So those are exciting workshops coming up. And when I push out the email to you here later today, you'll have links to all the stuff we're talking about, so you don't have to remember this. And also, I want to invite you all to Santa Fe. I know Linda's coming out here in July. Yay! So here at Santa Fe Artist Getaway, we have art workshops, we have artist residencies where you can come and stay and create in Studio Raven. And I also do one-on-one and coaching. So I hope that I can be of service to you, and that here in Santa Fe, this becomes a place where you can come and connect with your most creative, be inspired by nature, be inspired by Santa Fe. It is the 3rd largest art market behind New York and LA. Creativity overflows here. In fact, I was at the vet office yesterday. The vet office had 8 sculptures of life-size animals, wire animals in the yard. There is art everywhere. You cannot leave Santa Fe without a new appreciation and freshness and excitement about art. And if you have any questions about any of this, you can email me at btoddarts@gmail.com. So we're at the end of the presentation, and I'm going to open it up to questions, so you can unmute your mic here in a second. But if there's anyone that needs to hop off now, I just want to wish you well and say, live beautifully, create passionately, and play fully.